Hello everyone, and welcome to Jessica's Craft Shack. Today I'm doing a video tutorial to show you a quick and simple layout using a page maps sketch, some Unity and Ippity stamps, and some other wonderful embellishments and additional ribbons. I started with my desert sand basic cardstock, and I apologize, I don't know the company. It was either DCWV or Recollections. I've had it for a while and threw the label out. This ribbon here is one that I got at my local Michael's. It was on clearance, and it's by a company called Simplicity. The designer paper that I'm using is from a friend of mine, a blend, Cindy, at Creative Cindy. And then the border punch that I used was a corner punch, actually, Martha Stewart scroll lace, and I used the corner punch to create this border. This orange paper is by Recollections. It's from the Soda Pop collection. The picture I'm working with here is my dear mother-in-law and her sisters at Christmas time. They are a fabulous group of ladies, and I feel so blessed to have her and them in my life. And I'm going to do this layout for my mother-in-law as a Valentine's Day gift for her. I'll also put a link up on my blog so you can get to this page map sketch if you want to play around with it too. The reason I like this scroll lace punch and to use it as a border, especially on something that I'm going to have some frills and lace and vintage feel to it, retro feel to it, is because it creates this little lip here, this little scallop, almost like a paper clip effect. And I really love how that hangs over the paper and adds to it. I did the same thing on this side, but I didn't do the paper clip effect over here because I didn't want to hide one of her sister's faces there. For the stamps that I'm going to be using a couple of the foliage stamps here from the Ippity Where You Should Be set. I'm also going to be using a couple of the tickets from You're the Ticket Itty Bitty by Unity, as well as a couple stamps from some kits of the month. I'm going to use the Sisters by Heart title. And the reason that I chose that one is because Diana had this on her Facebook listed as Soul Sisters, and that's where the inspiration really came from to use that stamp. So I'm going to use that one, and that's from the December 2011 kit, Filled with Love. And I'm also going to try to incorporate this floral stamp from the January kit of the month, Heart and Soul. This here, this flower and the stem are two separate stamps, but I'm just going to use the flower part of it. And I haven't decided yet, but I may use this floral set as well. So I'll keep that off to the side just in case. I've got some extra embellishments and ribbons to help me along the way if I decide to change my mind. I've got some My Mind's Eye Stella Rose collection, some memory makers, and then I've also got some buttons that are from the Stella Rose collection, although I may use some of these fabulous vintage buttons that my BFF gave me. Actually, I have to give credit to her mother, because her mother knows how much I love to craft, and she put these together and sent them with Teresa on her last visit. And I've got some roses here that are from I Am Roses. I may use those as well. Now what I did is I went ahead and I started laying out my cardstock and my designer paper to save some time here. And I'll go ahead and put those dimensions down in my blog post too, so you can access that. Write those down if you decide you want to play with this. If you're going to use a 4x6 photo, these sizes really work quite well. I've also got, just in case I decide to use it, I like to make my own corsage pins. And I just bought these generic pearl-ended corsage pins in a box of, I think, 100. Bought those, and I make my own. I use some Sureflex adhesive glue, and I get my collection of beads out, and I just play around with the colors. Now what I did at the tip here is I did go ahead and use some alcohol ink to take the white off of the tip of this. The white just wouldn't have worked too well with these muted tones and these neutral tones and creams. So I used Sunshine Yellow Adirondack alcohol ink and let that dry before I went ahead and adhered my beads. And I like to take my beads, I like to hold this upside down, put a dab of it in between this pearl and the first bead, and just slide it up and down the metal pin so that it goes down inside the hole of the bead and holds it real tight. I've also seen other individuals take some Mod Podge over top of it, which would give it a nice clear coat, but for a purpose of what I'm doing today, I'm not going to do that. I like the simplicity of it just the way it is. Now, in order to go ahead and get your lace ribbon down, I like to use hot glue when I'm doing different settles different, folds and stuff with my ribbon. And I don't like my ribbon to be perfect. Perfection just doesn't cut it with me sometimes. Sometimes clean straight lines work well, but for the purpose of this layout, I'm going to let it just kind of flow. And we're going to get that down there, and I'm going to get my glue gun out, and we're going to go ahead and start adhering some of that ribbon. Now I'm going to start here and let my edge hang over quite a bit. And I'm just going to dab a line of my glue, press it down, and then I'm going to do a little bit here so my first flap can hold down right onto that. Again, perfection is not important here with this. The messier the better. You'll get some lines that are appealing and won't take away from your focal point either. And this part is solely up to you on how you want to fold your ribbon in, how big you want your loops to be, how far apart you want them to sit. The nice thing about a lace ribbon is a lot of times the glue will come right through the lace, so you don't have to be real meticulous with it. And like I said, I like it to be a little bit off-centered, not perfectly straight, so I'm going to go to the side with this one a little bit. I do want to hide my straight line of my designer paper, so I want to be sure that's not showing through, but as far as the lace goes, I'm not real concerned on how straight that is. Alright, and this might be my last one here. Plop that down, and then we're going to go over top of it with this. Okay? Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ink up some of my foliage stamps from my Ippity set, Where You Should Be. And I love the berry look. I love this that's solid. I also love this here. I'm going to try this one first. And I've got out some of my Studio G inks. I've got an orange and a green, as well as I'm going to use some of my Distress inks to do a top layer with that floral, so it goes over top of the oranges and the greens and is a little bit darker. We're going to go ahead and start with the orange. When I'm using my bigger block, I like to just tap my ink right onto the stamp. And as you can see in this here, the flowers are going kind of off to a curve, so that's what we're going to do with these as well. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put them, they don't have to be in the same exact place. The sketch is only there to help you get started. And I love that that didn't show up real dark, that it's just muted and it's just there. So it's going to be behind my floral when I'm ready for it. I'm going to do one more. And this time I'm going to go this way with it. And again, I love that that's a light orange, and I think it matches the paper quite well. Now I'm going to go with my berry from the same set, Where You Should Be. And I'm going to ink it with this very light green Studio G ink. And because that curve goes the opposite direction, I'm going to go ahead and bring that right over here. And I'm going to stamp it right onto the paper. I'm trying not to get onto my orange cardstock. Then we're going to set that off to the side. Now it's going to be time to use my small blocks. And because I want this to show through a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my Vintage Photo Distress ink. And I want to go right over top of this without getting onto the orange cardstock once again, but I do want to go right over top of that foliage stamp. This is probably going to end up being one of my favorite stamps to use. I love florals. And we're going to do one more right over here. And I'm going to turn my block a little bit just so it's not the same direction as my one up top. I like to change it up a bit. Okay. And there we have those. Now it's going to be time to play around with our ticket stamps from the itty bitty set, You're the Ticket. And I'm going to grab some of my scrap paper that I have that's also these muted tones. I love using up my scraps. This yellow I think is going to work really well. It's not going to show through too much. I don't want to get any of the red that I have here. I'm going to scoot this over a little bit so I'm still in sight. I'm going to try to get right in here with both of my tickets. And again, I'm going to use the Vintage Photo Distress ink. I want it to show up as a bold point. This is going to be part of the title, more like a subtitle. Okay. Okay, sorry for that brief interruption. I didn't realize I had my memory card in my camera that has a very short life to it. So we'll call that first video part 1, and then we'll call this one part 2. When I left off, we were just stamping our ticket stamps by Unity, You're the Ticket, using the Distress Ink Vintage Photo. And like I said, I'm going to do the yellow so it just pops a little bit, but not too much yellow. And then the Distress Ink in the Vintage Photo is going to give us a highlighted subtitle. So for these, I'm just going to hand cut them and try to stay outside of the lines as much as possible, just to give me that dark edge. Then I won't have to go back through and stamp the edges or distress the edges as much. Okay. Give myself a little leeway there. Put that back over in my scrap box. And I'm going to get my smaller scissors to do the more detailed cutting of the ticket. I love these stamps by Unity. Absolutely adore them. I used them on one of the last layouts that I did. I'm losing track of my days. Yesterday or the day before my daughter's Sweet 16 birthday party. And I just loved putting these tickets on there with a couple staples, giving it that vintage feel, rustic feel with the staples. I think my next visit to the store is going to be to purchase some different colored staples, and then I can play around with different colors too. Alright. Alright, so we have our 2 ticket stamps ready to go. Alright, let's turn our page around here. Alright. And I like to follow the sketch, but I also like to take my time with it and, like I said before, add my own little twist onto it. Now, because I've already got everything glued down, I still want to use my stapler. I don't want to not have those on there. I'm going to go ahead and just staple the ticket, okay, with a staple. And we'll do 2 on this one. And go real close to the top and bottom so it doesn't hang over too much. And it's still going to give us the effect that it looks like it might be stapled to the backing paper. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do some tape on the back of our tickets. And this one. Okay, and I want the date one to be on the outer part, so we're going to go ahead and sit this one down first. Alright, and then we'll put the date one right here, and that'll leave me room to fill the date in when I'm ready. Okay, and as I stated before, I want to go ahead and I want to use the Sisters by Heart stamp as my title. Actually, I'm changing my mind as I go along here. I'm going to do it down below here. I think it's going to fit quite well. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it there. And then we'll do Soul Sisters as the title. I think that'll mean a lot more to Diana. So I hope you don't see this video before I give this to you on Valentine's Day. She does tend to follow me on my blog and on Facebook. God love her. Okay, and I did get around the edges a little bit, so I just rub my thumbs across it so that doesn't show up on my page. Sometimes I get careless when I'm inking my stamps, so I gotta go back in and play with it. So do that a little bit more. Be sure not to rock your acrylic block back and forth. That is what tends to give you those lines around your edges. We'll go ahead and just put it right down right there. Oh yeah, I like that better right there. Okay, so we're almost completely done. It's just a matter of picking out some extra little embellies that we might want to use. And the title, I have to pick out which set of chipboard letters alphas that I'm going to pick. So we're going to pause the video while I look for those, and I will be right back. Okay, so I've picked out my alphas. And I can't tell you the brand on these either because the sleeve that they were originally in did get thrown out. I did go ahead to make sure that we had all the letters we were going to need to do this. And because this is going to be the bottom where we're going here, I'm going to go ahead and start with my bottom S and my top S and just work myself over to the right here. I tried to keep all of the stickers and alphas that met this color scheme, and I like that they're all going to be different. I love using different fonts and different colors, so it's not as uniform. Again, like I said earlier, sometimes the perfection just doesn't work for me. I like it to be a little off, a little different. I think it adds character to it. Okay, so there we go with the beginning, Soul, and we're going to do Sisters below it. The nice thing about these stamps is you can overlap them if there's too much space in between, and just kind of play around with them until you get what you want out of it. And you can turn them to the side and twist them. This one here. Now, because that one kind of goes over top of it, I'm going to lift this back up. And I'm going to put my T under the S. I don't want it to be too spaced out. I didn't so much like the red, but I must have used these stickers a couple times before because that's the only E that I had left. But it'll work. It'll work for what I'm doing here. And that red doesn't match up well with, I'm going to go ahead with the bright green and the pink R. We do have a little bit of pink and melon. Definitely have the green here. And I'm going to trim this one down. Just real simple. Take a strip off of the original sticker. Again, so it's not too far in between each of the letters. And we need one final S to go with that. And this S, the way that it sits, I'm going to go ahead and lift my R up a little bit and play with it until I get it just right. And there is our title, Soul Sisters. I like how that came out. Okay, still have my hot glue gun in. I'm definitely going to add some buttons. Buttons are just a fun part of me creating. I love buttons. And we're going to work with some of these vintage buttons that I got from Rhea. I'm not sure how I'm going to place them, what I'm going to do. I do like the big buttons, although that's not really what I'm going for. I want a small focal here. Maybe put a couple in the centers of the flowers. Buttons are so versatile. You can do so much with them. You can make them into photo corners. You can, like I did here, you can make them into the center of your flowers. You can just add them really anywhere. They're just a really versatile and diverse way to embellish your pages. I like the idea of doing maybe some photo corners here. Okay, we'll do a couple photo corners. We got a clear one. It's not too shiny. Let's try more of a melon or a pink color. We'll do a pink right there. The pink and the browns and the yellows. And we're going to have a little dark pink to give that a little pop. What do you think? I think it looks great. So we're going to take our trusty little glue gun. And this is a trusty little glue gun. This is actually one of the cheaper brands that you can buy. And I am surprised, as much as I use them, that they have not decided they don't want to work anymore for me. So we'll just add a couple squeaks of glue. For those of you who might not be familiar with a glue gun, you know, there might be someone out there, you never know. When you're putting the glue on, if you go into a circular motion after you're done pulling the trigger, it'll help you to get those flyaways tamed down so they're not hanging off of your embellishments, or when you're making wreaths and doing flowers onto your wreaths or foliage, you know, just add that in. I like having the glue pop through the holes. To me, that's really fun. Now, I did touch that one to tame it down because it wasn't even. Okay, and then one more little dab of glue here. Alright, so there we go. Our buttons are on. We've got photo corners. We've got buttons inside our flowers. I am going to figure out something to do for journaling down here, to leave her a spot to write any notes that she might want to add. I do think I'm going to add a couple of my I Am Roses to this as well. They're just too pretty not to. And I like to cut them right up at the tip by the wire. You gotta make sure you have a pretty heavy-duty pair of scissors to do this, and be sure it's not a pair that you like to cut your paper real good with, because it will dull your scissors out. I've even used wire snips for this. I want to bring out a lot of that green because I feel like we got a lot of orange on the page, so we'll do a couple greens, maybe just one or two oranges, and definitely want to get some of this melon color here to bring it out. Love these colors. I'll try to remember to put a link up for the I Am Roses too. And then these flowers match the florals for the Unity stamps that we used here, the foliage in the background. So there's a win-win. Okay, to finish off the layout, we are going to go ahead and adhere a couple more of our paper roses. And then once that's done, I'm going to look to see if I do want, in fact, to use my corsage pen. Just dab of glue in a circle. Hold it down and it stays down quite well. And then after that, I don't want to add anything else because I think we will be complete. The pin may be a little bit off because it does have some blue in it, but we'll check. I was thinking about possibly putting it down into the lace ribbon and hiding the end of it and letting it poke out there from those paper roses. We'll see. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe we go down a little bit. That hides it too much. I love being able to just play around and decide if that is in fact how I want to do it, if I just want to leave it well enough alone. Okay, the little touch of blue I like. It's a little bit of the extra blue since we don't have a lot of that in there. So, my layout is complete, and I'll try to post as many details from this video on my blog so that you can read it. I know some people choose not to watch videos, but we'll go ahead and put all of the details up there for you, and I would love to hear all of your comments. Thank you. We'll see you soon.